This is the art of KAN LIU, also known on the intrawebs as Art of 666K. And, well, I love his style. The dynamic poses, the fluid renderings, the sunny lighting, the elf ears, of course, all things that I also appreciate in art. So in this new episode of my artist study series, we're going to be checking out his entire technique, try to break down his style, which should hopefully allow you to paint exactly like him, in theory. Just don't sue me if you can. I'm Marc. I started my career with this more painterly style. Probably my style of choice still, actually. So I'm very excited to be trying out his painterly style. But that's for later in the video, because right now we're going to be checking out a video of his, a time-lapse, together. And we'll see if we can extract some valuable information from it. So let's check out this one here from his channel. And by the way, I'll put the link down in the video description if you want to go and subscribe. All right, so right away I need to pause this just a second. I've always wondered why he had like these like orange bits, like these little hints of orange left and right on his final paintings. And I guess we have our answer here. He just starts with an orange sketch and then it will just paint over it all, I'm guessing. And then whatever's left in the end that he hasn't covered is what's going to be showing through. Pretty cool. All right, so initially he's using this very opaque brush. Right, it doesn't seem like it's being impacted by pen pressure here at all. And that could be for a few different reasons, but I'm guessing it's just to keep things clean initially. And because those brushes are very lightweight, so they're not gonna lag at all, regardless of the resolution of your image. And it looks like he's leaving the highlights areas not painted, instead of, you know, painting everything flat and then adding on the lights onto it later. Kind of a more traditional approach, I guess. Because digitally, I would do the opposite. So start dark and then build up the light from there. And I'll just have to take that back because he just went ahead and painted everything blue. So I guess he's going to be adding the light later. There it is. And already we can kind of see his signature like light scheme. So kind of naturally when you paint scenes where the sun is the main light source, well, you're going to get this light set up here. And I just want to see what he did with the hair. So we see some like blend. It looked like he smudged this. Let me go back a second. I'm just looking at this icon here if it activates at any point. Oh, it did. Again. Alright, so he used it a little bit for the background. And is he gonna use it for the hair? Oh, yes he does. Ah, interesting. Alright, so this transition here, essentially, he's gonna start with really opaque colors. Which is going to give you kind of this harsh transition between the highlights and the shadows. And so it looks like to blend the two, it's going to use this blender brush or smudge brush in Photoshop, which has this really nice kind of like rake effect. I've never seen this. You know what? Actually, before I forget, I want to try and recreate this in Photoshop real quick. So let's see what I can do. I'm not exactly sure how he did that, but I'm going to try something. Looks like almost like a rake effect, but not like a really clean one. Kind of rough in some parts. All right, I'm gonna turn this into a brush. So this is the smudge brush without any effect on it. It's pretty close already. I have my strength set to 98, so it pulls a lot of paint when I do this. So it's probably something like that. All right, so that's gonna help me out later for my study. So he's blocking in the shadows now. And that little bit of blue that you just added on the forehead, that again is going to be the light from the sky. So it's not random, right? So another example of that, if we just look at this other illustration here. So that area right there would probably be the kind of base skin color. And then you can see here the little bit of blue added on top of the nose. Again, that is going to be the same blue, you know, from the sky here that kind of makes its way all onto the face. And it's just applied very, very lightly. This is kind of the effect that you get as a result. If anything, it's even more obvious on the shoulder here. Something else that's interesting here, how his most saturated color is this orange outline that he started with. Everything else is very desaturated. Something else that I've noticed with his style is that he's going to have a, main character, obviously, which is going to be the focal point of most of his paintings. And then the backgrounds are left pretty bare most of the time. So you have kind of this empty space all around the character, which really brings the emphasis onto the character, just makes it really stand out. The same kind of logic as you would have, you know, in a really fancy restaurant where they give you this big plate and like a tiny dish in the center of it. They don't do that just to troll people. It's just, it helps make that one thing that's on the plate feel more important. Similar idea here. And another thing I noticed in his paintings in general, this one in particular, is the lack of colors. I mean, there are colors obviously, but they take really a back seat, where most of the heavy lifting is going to be done by the values. So, you know, all the blacks and the whites and all the grays in between. In a way, I think it helps make the orange outlines stand out even more in the end, because colors in his paintings are so rare. Like my stuff in comparison is so saturated, you probably wouldn't even notice. I feel like probably the rest of the video is just gonna be him tweaking the cloth until he finds something that he likes. Because the rest of the painting is mostly there. And this is the final result. Looks beautiful. So that was enlightening to watch. I got a couple of tips in here, which is going to help me when I do my own study a little bit later. And so, like, really roughly speaking, it looks like his technique start with 2 different shades. So the highlights and the shadows. And then on top of all of your colors, add a little bit of blue to account for the light coming from the sky. But that effect will be mostly seen on the lighter colors. And sometimes you can still see it on the darker colors, but it's very subtle. And the logic here might be that the darker colors, like the black fabrics, will tend to absorb most of the color frequencies. So the subtle blue light from the sky would just get absorbed completely. But yeah, anyways, we can't forget to mention the bounce lights that we can see here a little bit. So that would be like the light bouncing off of the snow and then back onto her chin. You can see a little bit more bounce light right there, the little warmer area here. And then he's just gonna smudge the harsh transitions between the highlights and the shadows. And that's basically it. Now in this illustration, you can look at the background here where there's a depth of field effect. This is something that he's actually gonna have in almost all of his paintings. So a very cinematic feel. I'm also a big fan of that, so I love seeing this. It just puts you right into the action, but also has a nice side effect of not attracting attention to stuff in the background that, you know, doesn't really matter, or in the foreground, because really the only thing that's literally in focus is the main character. You can see the effect here again, foreground blurred, background blurred, main subject in focus, and wow, what a painting. So here I'm starting with my orange sketch, and just like he did, I'm going to be blocking in the main colors with a full opacity brush. I'm going into this without much of a plan, to be fair. I'm just going to be drawing my character as she's blasting a hole through a rock wall. I start right away with both the shadow and the highlight colors like he did in his process video, because a huge part of the style comes from the actual process, which is why I feel it was important to watch his process video. But yeah, before I wrap this up though, if you're like me and you love to learn different techniques and styles, or you would love to, but you feel like you don't quite have the skills, I have something I think will help. Obviously, my channel is full of videos like this, trying to break down complex topics and various techniques, and you should definitely be subscribed. But if you're looking for even more, my art program might be exactly what you've been searching for. With an awesome Discord community to level up with, nearly 100 hours of video classes, and a week-by-week study guide to hold your hands basically through the whole program, we're celebrating reaching 28,000 students this month with a huge sale, so look down in the video description for the link to the program where you'll find all the info you need. It's a complete art education program comparable to what you would find at university, but for less than the price of most pen tablets. It's crazy value with the current discount, so don't miss out. The sale will be live for a couple more days. So now that I have most of my main colors blocked in, I can start to work on the background. I'm just trying to come up with a color palette that won't be too colorful, which is probably the hardest part for me. I love saturated colors. But yeah, when it comes to the characters, she's honestly basically done. Of course, I haven't really rendered anything, but all I have to do really is just blend the intersection between the highlights and the shadows, and that's basically the extent of the rendering. And that's one thing that I really like about his approach. You can tell that he developed it with speed in mind. Just flat shadows and highlights, simple light setup, and very quickly you get a really good idea of what the final illustration will look like. So I spent more time rendering things out, so here's the character with some shading and then more shading. What do you think so far? I worked on the rocks a bit more as well, but I was starting to have my doubts about the forest in the background. I think I like having nothing better, right? Now she's got space to breathe. Although I'll probably add something back there, but I don't know what yet. This was kind of a last minute change. So follow me on social media to see the final version when I post it. This whole process was actually pretty fast. I think I spent maybe 5 or 6 hours on the whole thing, including the sketch. It definitely needs like an hour or two, especially on the background. But one thing that I really liked is to not having to render the face too much, because usually that takes me quite a while, but he just doesn't. It's mostly just flat shading. The sketch is really doing all the heavy lifting here. I love it. This is one thing that I might actually borrow from his style moving forward. But yeah, let me know in the comments how you guys think that I did. I'm kind of happy with it. So now, who do I study next? Will be up to you. Let me know in the comments who you would like to see featured on the channel. And well, until then, maybe you'll like my study of Mai Yonayama. Check it out. The link will appear right here on the screen in a second. And I'll see you next week.